Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome you all to our first webinar on New at EmployWise. I'm your host, Gunjan Garg, Customer Relationship Executive at EmployWise. The webinar will take about 30 minutes and will cover the new feature releases for the last quarter, that was April to June. We will be taking some time after the presentation for your question and answers. Those who are watching us live can type in the question in the chat window anytime during the session, which you all can see on your screens. Now it gives me immense pleasure to introduce to our speaker Ashish Jindal, Vice President, Product Engineering at EmployWise. Ashish leads the design and development of the EmployWise product and is also responsible for delivering technology innovations. He has over 15 plus years of experience in the IT industry and has led 2 major product developments and several customer application projects. Now I hand over the webinar to Ashish.
Thank you, Gunjan. Hello, everybody, and thanks for listening in. I'm Ashish Jindal, and the photograph that you just saw is actually a few years old. Actually, I have a lot more gray hair now. At EmployWise, we take great pride in being part of a product which brings updates every week. Perhaps the only software product in the country to do so. These updates are driven by feedback from our customers, our prospects, our own market research, and our study of the HR domain. Through these updates, we constantly endeavor to improve the experience of our users. But we realized that we needed to do a much better job of communicating about these updates to our customers, and hence this webinar. This is the first in a regular series of monthly webinars about new releases called New at EmployWise. We will hold this webinar in the first week of every month and will cover the new features released in the previous month. Being the first webinar in this series, today's session will be a bit longer as I cover significant releases of the last 3 months. Please note that this webinar is to make you all aware of these new features. Should you need any help in implementing any of these features, please feel free to get in touch with our customer success team. I will discuss new features module-wise, and we can have Q&A at the end. Please feel free to write to us with our feedback and suggestions on the webinar. So we'll start with enhancements to our leave and attendance module, which has accounted for the lion's share of this quarter's new releases. First on the block, so we made a small addition to past attendance. When users want to modify their attendance for any reason by applying past attendance, the system now defaults the already existing in and out time, and the user can just change the time he or she wants to instead of having to enter both times. So for example, if I have not been able to mark my out time today due to some reason, and I tomorrow want to do a past attendance for that, I will not have to enter the in time since it's already there. So a useful little feature. OD requests can now be submitted for a past date also, but since that's mostly an unusual situation, to avoid erroneous submission, EmployWise will highlight the same to both requester and the approver. We've been enhancing our attendance integration APIs regularly to cater to more and more situations. So one change that we have done in recent past is that the API now gives a success and failure response when it's called programmatically. Also, for customers who have the capability to store attendance records and programmatically call our APIs in batch mode, we have added a bulk attendance API to enable them to submit multiple attendance records in one go. This makes the process much more efficient and able to receive response or success failures again programmatically. We are adding some significant capabilities to our integration effort, and we'll be talking about it in the next webinar. We have also added a new attendance methodology called auto attendance, which will automatically mark the employees in and out times as per planned shift timing at the end of the day. Okay, we've made the task of addition or removal of a holiday much easier. So while earlier you had to recreate the roster for all employees for the impacted date and ask all employees who have applied leave during the period to possibly reapply, now the system will do most of that automatically. So the rosters will be changed automatically to reflect the holiday changes. Also, all unapproved leaves will get suitably modified without any user having to do anything. And finally, for all those leave applications that have already been approved, system will automatically send them intimations so that they can reapply if required. So most of the tasks get automated when a holiday is added or removed. For non-fixed entitlement leaves, like let's say leave without pay or paternity leave, etc., which do not have any fixed entitlement but were event-based, if you had set the rule as deviation not allowed, system used to consider zero balance as insufficient balance and not allow that leave. Customers therefore had to set the deviation allowed rule even if for all other purposes they did not want deviations. Now this need not be done since system will not consider leave balances for such leave types. An exception to this, of course, is the compensatory off leave type, where there is a mechanism for credit of leave balances and availing of leave balances. Now when an employee gets separated, the impact on leave accrual will happen automatically. This will happen in two ways. If the accrual has been set to be at period start and therefore accrual for the period has already happened when the employee separates, system will reduce the extra accrual if any. On the other hand, if the accrual is at period end, the system will perform the necessary accrual from the last accrual period till the separation date when the employee gets separated. So nobody has to do any manual intervention in case of a separation. So in all the attendance calendars, be it personal calendar or group calendar, group summary, if a manager wanted to check the calendar of a team member who's not a direct report but say a level 2 or level 3 report, it was a bit cumbersome to do so. The manager had to search for that user's name, and for next such user it had to again search for the user's name. Now the system gives you filters to choose level 1, level 2, level 3 reports. You will get as many level options as the reporting employees that you have under you. And on selecting a particular filter, the system will show their names on the left side as usual, as you see for the direct reports, and you can navigate to their calendars in the usual way. We've also added some new rules in leave type definitions. So now you can define entitlement based on slabs of either tenure or age of an employee if you so want, rather than just a fixed value. So something like a sick leave, for example, may be defined in terms of age of the employee, saying that, okay, if the person is up to, or on the tenure, if the tenure is up to 3 years, entitlement is 12, in any tenure from 36 to 60 months, that is 5 years, the entitlement will be at 18, and so on and so forth. Based on common feedback, we have also added more rounding off rules for leave accruals. So now you can have leave accrual rounding off to either whole day, half day, or even up to a quarter day, or to 1 or 2 decimals. So it makes the whole process much more flexible and amenable to your policies. An interesting feature this allows customers to enable the employees to avail leave balances even if they don't currently have sufficient leave balance, but will have in the rest of the year. Moving on now to the travel and expense module enhancement. While we are adding a lot of features in this module in July, and we'll talk about it in our next month's webinar, we have added one in recent past, and that is to allow managers to ask requesters to reconsider their travel request. Quite similar to the way it's done for leave applications. The employee who requested will then be able to either make changes and resubmit for approval or discard the request. We have added a few new capabilities to the comp and benefit module. The benefits definition has been enhanced to allow setting up of 2 more rules, a fixed amount for a benefit head and a fixed number of times that the claim can be taken in a tenure. These rules typically apply to benefit heads like, say, a marriage allowance which the company gives as a fixed amount once in the tenure on an employee's wedding. So when the employee makes this claim, he or she has only to select the head. The system will fill in the amount, which of course cannot be changed, and the process will take on from there. We have also added significant flexibility to definition of the benefit claims workflow, which has been upgraded to allow customers to define separate workflows for separate benefit heads if required. So for example, if a company wants to set up a different approver or accounts person for a furnishing allowance and a different one for mobile, it can set up differently. Of course, for such heads, the user would need to make separate claims since the workflows are different and would go to different people. Moving on to PMS, we've been adding capabilities to our PMS module regularly and will continue to do so aggressively in times to come. One of the most significant additions to this module has been addition of another layer of review in the appraisal process, and that is the reviewer, that is the L2 manager or manager's manager of an appraisee. It's an optional stage, of course, and customers can decide to include reviewer approval in their goal setting process or review process or both. Not only this, we've also enabled higher up managers to search for appraisees for whom they are neither appraiser nor reviewer and still be able to give comments at an individual KPI or competency level, of course, apart from being able to look at the appraisal itself. Though of course they cannot take any other action on the appraisal, but they can give specific feedback, pointed feedback on individual line items. Finally, we have added some new rules in goal setting section of PMS through which customers can decide that employees joining mid-year will fall under which review processes, depending on the date of joining or date of confirmation. So if an employee joins in Q3 of the year, Q1 and Q2 will be automatically skipped. Q3 may or may not be skipped depending on the rule and how many days buffer is set up. Last but not the least, we made some change in our employee data upload process. Earlier, customers often uploaded Excel files which, while seemingly having data only in say 500 rows, had blank spaces or other data rows by mistakes, sometimes running into thousands of records. This made the system kept on processing all these rows and took a very long time and sometimes resulted in having to resubmit. We have now made it required to place an end tag after the last data row. So the system will simply ignore all records after that. In our limited experience so far, this has led to faster and error-free uploads. So that's it from my side in this first webinar.
Thank you, Ashish, for letting our audience know this useful information. Thanking all the participants and hoping the session was useful and informative. This webinar would be archived and made available at gotowebinar.com. Plus, we would be, those who were not able to hear us or were not able to attend us, we would be mailing them personally. And for further more updates, please visit www.employwise.com/community, or for further feedbacks and suggestions on this webinar, you can write it to me. My ID is gunjan.garg@employwise.com. And one more thing I need to inform you that we would be having a second webinar, which would be a monthly webinar on August 4th. So hoping to see you all again there.